So SNP's Eddie Izzard has taken some time away from court cases. The second being, of course, to see if Boris Johnson could potentially end up in jail if he fails to follow the law of the Ben Bill, effectively fucking up Brexit. And they know damn well that that's what the Ben Bill was intended to do, Blatford's own admission on the Politics live show a few days prior. But I am left wondering how people can't seem to catch on to just what's going on here. Because, as I've been stating for many a month, trying to point out the obvious, without bias aside, just stating the obvious, these people are talking about independence with a mandate that says circumstantial changes such as being dragged out of Europe against our will, but yet they're trying to stop Brexit and have been doing that for the longest time, which is a bit of a contradiction in a sense, because in doing so, if successful, then they don't no longer have a mandate. And as things currently stand in terms of Brexit, it's not looking that likely that Brexit's going to happen. I mean, they're talking about a vote of no confidence. Beta Blatford today on Sunday Politics, or whatever it's called, this morning, was talking about this very thing. But yet here we have Eddie Izzard standing here and talking about the difference between an independent Scotland in comparison to Brexit Britain. What Brexit Britain?
And it's about the independent Scotland that we aspire to create. Because I think it's very important to say that it's going to be a very, very different place from Brexit Britain. And it's going to be an inclusive society.
Oh, God. Oh, no. Here we go.
And an egalitarian society where diversity is celebrated.
Oh, I might have fucking known.
And immigrants are welcomed as new Scots.
Welcomed as new Scots. Now, I'm just going to keep this short and sweet. Angela Merkel has stated several times before words to the effect of the people, a nation belongs to everybody that lives within said nation, not a specific group of people that have claim to said nation. Germany is full of Germans, but immigrants coming in are equally as German. It's eroding their claim to their land. The Muslim immigrants and the African immigrants are just as German as the native Germans, and the same thing is happening here. New Scots. They're just as Scottish as you and I. No, they're not. That's not to say that people can't come here. I just want acknowledgement that native Scots exist. I want acknowledgement that this is our land. I want acknowledgement that we are native to this land. Because the minute that they admit that, this is why they won't do it, the minute that they admit that, then they leave themselves open to a vulnerable counterattack. Because the point would have to be raised as to why they're allowing for these policies, many of, by the way, that are going to see us become not just a minority in our own country. Well, it's not our country anymore, is it? But
and it's going to be a fairer society where our pensioners get decent pensions that they've worked for all their lives. And it's going to be a fairer society where the burden of taxation falls on those best able to pay it. Going to be a country that will lead the world in the fight for climate justice and the campaign for nuclear...
Climate justice? You mean communism? Climate justice. It's a great little trope they've got going. Not going to acknowledge the 500 odd scientists that are demanding that the UN drop the name climate emergency. But yet they want to talk about climate justice. Giving away all of our finance to Malawi and Zambia, etc., because we're to blame for non-existent climate change. And nuclear disarmament. And who are they doing that for? They're doing that bidding of the United Nations.
Amen. But most of all, our independent Scotland will be at the heart of Europe.
They're making it seem as if it's a simple rerun of 2014. Sturgeon pretty much said so herself in Holyrood a couple of weeks ago in an argument with Richard Leonard over the question, No matter how much the SNP ignore the reality of what the European Union intends to do, and they don't make a secret of it. The SNP know all of this because they are just the same as the people within the European Union that are making the waves towards federalisation. Learning for sustainability is a unique concept developed in Scotland based on local and international research, bringing education for sustainable development, global citizenship, and elements of outdoor learning with the intention of helping young people understand, envision and act positively to securing a sustainable future. Global citizenship. In the first half of the United Nations Decade of Education for Sustainable Development, themes relating to sustainable development education, global citizenship and outdoor learning were firmly embedded within the curriculum for excellence and feature prominently in the experiences and outcomes. Sustainable development education, global citizenship and outdoor learning each make an essential contribution to building the values, attitudes, knowledge, skills and confidence needed to engage positively with the challenges our society and the world face. Our vision for Scotland is a nation which is confident, outward-looking, culturally enriched and knowledge-based. Supporting this vision, learners of all ages need to develop a better understanding of the world in which they live, work and thrive, appreciate the values and cultures of different societies and recognise the ways in which, as global citizens, they can influence and shape their environment and society. Our international strategy affirms commitment to preparing today's learners across all sectors for a global future. Globalisation is the key point to pick up on if you've not already noticed. The SNP are selling this country out. The SNP want to have full control so they can continue to do what they've been doing to a degree behind the scenes, but with full control at the behest of the European Union.
Independent Scotland will be at the heart of Europe.
And that is... She doesn't know how long that process would take. And second of all of the jobs that they have repeatedly told you would be lost in the event of a no-deal Brexit, they would be lost if independence was won.
Sitting at the top table.
Are we all?
And we will not be like nationalists from England who want to be cantankerous on the sidelines wishing for the British Empire to return, because that'll never happen.
And we have the proverbial attack on nationalism because the SNP's party name, something that they can't really shift. Rather embarrassing. It's only a few years ago that nationalism was still rather synonymous with patriotism, but you know, the United Nations have now deemed it something that needs to go. It's the one thing that still remains a threat to the end goal of removing sovereignty from all of our nations and becoming one giant federalist hellhole. Nobody at any point has ever referred to going back to the British Empire, but I'll tell you this, it'd be a damn sight better than the fucking future you're planning, Eddie.
Now, the message that the unionist parties want to give us is a negative message. And they want to say to people in Scotland, you can't do this and you can't do that. And of course, last week, a Liberal Democrat Member of Parliament actually said to his constituents that he would rather they faced the catastrophic damage of a no-deal Brexit than become an independent nation.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that voting for independence, leaving the United Kingdom and then waiting to try and get back into Europe is exactly the same as a no-deal Brexit. Literally the same thing.
But of course, we know that's nonsense, because as we look across Europe, we see examples of small independent nations thriving and taking...
Oh, here we go again. And how many of these countries that you are going to refer to here are net contributors, and how many of them actually get topped up? They seem to leave out these little bits of information, deliberately of course, because it fucks up their whole argument.
Taking a seat at the top table
We're all at the top table now, of course.
Alongside their larger neighbours. And nowhere do we see better the contrast between what Scotland is and what Scotland could be than when we look at the position of Ireland.
What about Ireland? They keep bringing up Ireland when it suits them. It's no secret at this point that the European Union have deliberately used Ireland as a bargaining chip. And they claw.
A small economically successful nation on the
It's getting 3 million, is it? 3 million immigrants by 2040. The EU filled Ireland full of fucking money, and in return, they accepted the 2040 project.
fringes of Western Europe that takes its seat at the top table in Europe and that dictates the EU's negotiating strategy while Scotland is ignored on the sidelines.
Or is she talking about Northern Ireland? Well, again, I go back to the bargaining chip.
But you know, the great thing, friends, is that Scotland hasn't been
Oh my God.
completely powerless in the struggle against Brexit.
That's a lie. A fucking lie. I can't take this shit, man.
There have been some victories against the British government, and I've
all in the last 2 weeks.
been very proud to be part of them.
But it contradicts what you said 5 minutes ago. You're talking about independence being better than Brexit Britain, but your success stories that everybody's cheering for now have near enough stopped Brexit from happening.
Equally, with the challenge to Boris Johnson's prorogation, that wasn't just my case. There were other SNP MPs, Labour MPs, Lib Dem and independent MPs who all joined together, but the SNP provided the leadership.
Yeah, you do that. Then she said it herself, by her own admission, they took leadership. So that little quote a couple of minutes ago about being ignored, cast aside and so on, doesn't really wash, does it, Eddie?
And when we started that case to try and have the prorogation declared unlawful, legal commentators north and south of the border said that we would lose, and media commentators were sceptical or just ignored us.
Realistically, you should have lost. It's pretty obvious that that was a political ruse.
When we lost at the first hurdle, they poured scorn on us. Then when we won before Scotland's Supreme Court, they belittled Scotland's Supreme Court and said surely that would be overturned in London.
Which it should have been.
But we persevered and we won 11-0 in the United Kingdom Supreme Court.
And what does that tell you? Well, all of it reality.
So we won against all the might of the British government, such as it is these days, against all the odds, because we had conviction and self-belief.
Yes, that's great. That's very great. Rather commendable. Pat yourself on the back, Eddie. But the fact of the matter is, these are all things that you have done to stop Brexit or make the process of Brexit harder. But you are trying to make the case for independence, where you're standing there with your pre-prepared script. You are trying to give off this impression that independence is coming, but as you said at the beginning of the video, an independent Scotland will be better than Brexit Britain. But you've just rattled off several things that you've done to prevent Brexit Britain. And if Brexit Britain doesn't happen, then you've got nothing in that mandate anymore.
And we kept going, we kept fighting, and we righted a wrong. And that has been news across the world, that Scottish politicians led the legal fight which forced the British Parliament to go back to work. And by God, do people across Europe now understand why Scotland wants to be an independent nation?
Oh yeah, did they tell you that?
So, my message to you today is that independence is coming soon. In the current fog of British politics, it's hard
that you have stopped near enough. I mean, fucking hell. I mean, these people contradict themselves. They should be tripping over themselves. You know, the amount of plot holes in this whole narrative that they have created for themselves. It's bizarre that nobody has shot them down in flames at this point. They are living in an alternate reality. The fact of the matter is, if you look at every single policy and legislation and whatnot that our government have, why don't you look for all the policies and the publications and the updated education system that the SNP are responsible for, and look at who has been pulling their strings this whole time? The United Nations. The United Nations have been centre stage and have played a pivotal role in Scotland and the direction Scotland continues to take and has been taken up until this point. Every single policy, they have got their hands all over it, including the most recent one, the smacking ban. So it's not independence at all. Also interesting to note, with record low birth rates and so on and so forth, them talking about migration to solve the problem. Also interesting if you look at the definition that the UN have for native or indigenous. You would think that, even though Joanna Cherry, Eddie here, likes to make out that New Scots are just as Scottish as anybody else, or descendants, generations, just as Scottish as a Gambian that's come over here on a boat. You know, we're all Scottish, whatever. Their definition on the United Nations website is the descendants and survivors of colonialism. Pretty much sums it up.